flailing around. I'm back and we're live again. It's I'm maybe 1 minute late. But it is hour 2 of our 12-hour mini marathon session. Let's talk tech. And for hour number 2, we're going to talk about turbo cams. And the reason for that is, and we're going to do a couple things here where I'm going to have you guys help me answer some questions and comments that I get, whether via email or comments that we get from the other videos that I posted, either live feeds or some of the other videos where we've done direct back-to-back testing. Again, for the 12-hour live feed, shout out to the guys at Brian Tooley Racing and Airflow Research and Vortec and SCAT and all the good guys that support it. And you guys at Monster, you guys need to sponsor these. It's a product that I use, and so you guys need to help sponsor this. So come on, somebody contact me for Monster. But we want to talk about turbo cams. I have cams available. I have inexpensive cams for sale, $179. If you have an LS and you want a camshaft, I have something that will fit your needs. And not only do I have something that will fit your needs, and we've talked about this many times, there are actually lots and lots of cams available to fit your needs. So when choosing a cam, most of the people need to get off this or eliminate the idea that there is like this magical best cam. Whoever your guy is, whether you get cams from BTR or GPI or Texas Speed or Comp or Cam Motion, Isky, whoever you get it from, the cam that they have, I'll let you in on a little industry secret. It's like this is top secret stuff. You guys can't tell anybody about this. That the cam that you get, whatever specs they are, is not the best cam. The cams, the inexpensive cams that I have for sale are not the best cams. The cams that Brian Tooley has, the cams that Isky or Cam Motion, where they're not the best cams. I love the fact that lots of these guys like Brian Tooley, GPI, all these guys, I like working with guys that have done lots and lots of testing and are constantly trying to find more power and find better stability and find all of the things that make camshafts good. That's fantastic. But there is not one cam, even for one application. So if I tell somebody, hey, look, I have a 5.3 that has 799 heads on it. I don't know why you'd put those on there, but it has ported 799 heads on it. It has a Trailblazer SS intake manifold. I'm going to run an S475. What's the best cam for that? I'll let you in on a little secret. There is not one cam that's better than every other cam from any manufacturer for that combination. There are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of camshafts that will work really well for that combination. There are cams that will allow you to get everything that you could possibly get out of that turbo. If that's 1,000 horsepower turbo, there's thousands of camshafts that would allow you to make 1,000 horsepower with that combination, because the turbo dictates that, not the camshaft. The camshaft dictates other things, not the maximum output, but it will help dictate response rate. So if you pick a big cam and we make our combination or NA combination more powerful, you would be able to get that power output at a lower boost level. And you might argue, if we go to the vast majority of the curve, 95% of the curve is going to be what the curve is. If what we start talking about with camshafts are the very beginning of that curve and the very end of that curve, and its effect on those areas of the curve. Because you might argue, if you're a turbo guy, and this is what the experts will tell you, guys that want to design you a custom cam, here's what they'll tell you. Well, but Richard doesn't know what he's talking about, because if we put a camshaft in there that's a turbo cam and it's better and it makes more NA power output, because that's essentially what it's going to do. If it does that, we'll be able to make that 1,000 horsepower at a lower boost level. We'll be in a different part of the map, which may or may not be, depending on what the map shape is. We might be at a better part of the efficiency island. The temperature would be lower, and so it would make more power. We could have that discussion. I'm open to having that discussion. That if you can show me where the different position on the map is relative to those two camshafts, if you can show me what that change is, and if you could show me somebody who has ever tested that and shown enough repeatability in that range, maxing out that turbo with that camshaft on some kind of dyno, and it showed me that they made 1, 2, 5, whatever horsepower more by doing it that way than the other way, I'd have that conversation. I would, I understand that, having done testing at this level and done more of this kind of testing than the vast majority of people have. I understand that. But let's say that that was the case. Let's say that you found a camshaft, you made more NA power, you lowered the boost pressure that it required to get there. That would give you a little bit of an advantage because the charge temperature would be lower after the intercooler that you're using, because you should be using an intercooler. And you're able to make a little bit more. Okay, let's assume that that's the case. Here's my counter argument to that. Okay, I accept that's possible. If you did that, you lowered the boost down here. You lowered the response rate by making that camshaft bigger and more powerful and making more NA power. You did that. And so you reduced the boost down here. Also, if you had a custom cam that did that, I'm not even necessarily thinking that you required a custom cam to get that done, that you could do that with another off-the-shelf cam. But let's say that you did that, you reduce spool up. Of the two of those things, for the kinds of camshafts that I'm recommending, for the people that I'm recommending them to, which of those two things is more important to you? Is the 5 horsepower or 10 horsepower that you got up here because you made more NA power and you were able to change the boost level so that you had your best cam doing that? Or is it more important that you have spool rate for when you're running this thing on the street, assuming that it is a street strip cam? Again, the choice of those two things is going to depend on what your definition of best is. Do you want that extra 10 horsepower because you're running a class combination where they dictate a 76 millimeter turbo or whatever size it is, and so you're having to figure out the last little bit of that? That's not even somebody I really want to talk to, because that's a very specific thing that's going to require endless amount of testing to try to get everything that they can. You should just be cheating, basically. Everything that you can out of that combination. That's not the average guy. The average guy wants a camshaft that he can put in, one that's inexpensive and readily available and that he could get. So those things are probably going to be way more important than this theoretical thing that we're going to be talking about at this other end of the curve. And that's something to understand. And that's why when we're talking about, when I tell people that every cam is a turbo cam, I just mean that you can run boost on it on any camshaft. And again, people are going to want to argue with me about that. But more importantly, that the thing that you're doing to your NA curve is going to dictate how successful that camshaft is once you add boost to it. And even more than that, that the thing that you're doing to your NA curve with your camshaft is way more important than the fact that you have a camshaft that a guy would call a turbo cam. Because if it doesn't idle good, if it has lots of chop, if it doesn't get good fuel mileage, if it doesn't have good turbo response, all of that stuff is usually way more important to the average guy than the fact that he could make whatever more horsepower at the very top of the RPM range. Because the amount of time that you spend there is way less than you wanting the boost to come on sooner, than you wanting the idle quality to be whatever the idle quality is, that you wanting, drivability or fuel mileage or response rate or combination with your converter or all the other things that come into play when getting a turbo. Most of the guys that I talk to that are asking about turbo cams are guys that really just need a cam. And honestly, you can run a stock cam and it works just fine, whether it's an LS or small block Chevy or big block Chevy or whatever. You can run boost on a stock cam, and with very few exceptions, none of those cams were designed as specific turbo cams because they weren't designed by the OEM for a turbo application, which for a lot of people is really the definition. Okay, was that camshaft designed for a turbo cam? No. In fact, we take an LS9 cam, for instance, that was designed as a positive displacement blower cam specifically. We know that because that's the combination that they made the cam for. Does that mean it's not a turbo cam? Does that mean guys have not run that camshaft with a turbo? No, they have. They've done that a lot. It's not the one that I recommend because it's so soft down low. And for me, that's way more important, especially for a street and or a street strip kind of combination. If it's a dedicated race car and you have a 5,000 RPM stall in it and you're doing that and you're making 1,500 horsepower, 2,000 horsepower, that's another thing. The guys that are driving on the street and making street power and street turbo response should not even be looking at what that guy's doing. It doesn't matter that he makes 1,500 horsepower, 2,000 horsepower. You're not there. What you're doing is not that. Don't take your camshaft recommendation from that guy because that's going to be a terrible camshaft for the average 4.8 or 5.3 with an S475 or a GT45 turbo. That's going to be a terrible combination. Doesn't make any difference how much power he's making because he's not making that power because of his cam choice. His combination is a 2,000 horsepower combination because of his turbos and his cam and his cylinder heads and his intake manifold and his RPM and his gearing and his transmission and all those things. That's a whole different thing. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about down here. And what we're talking about down here, there are so many camshafts that will work for what you're doing that you almost shouldn't be concerned about that. The cams I have, the low buck truck camshaft, very good camshaft for the average guy that's driving around. Really good. Makes good average power, has enough chop that a chop guys like it, has a good enough idle that the regular guys like it, and obviously works as a turbo cam because we've run turbos with it. Same thing with the Truck Plus cam, one step up. If you want to make a little bit more power, maybe you've got a 6-liter and you want to run a little bit more NA power, and that between those two cams, you can do anything that you want that's even north of 1,000 horsepower and anything less than that. Those cams will do that. Then you could be thinking, hey, look, Richard has these cams. They're only $179 shipped. You're not going to find a better deal than that because the cams are not these cheap eBay cams. They've been tested. The specs have been verified. They've been dyno tested. They've been hardness tested. They've done all of that. So if you're looking at these inexpensive cams, these are a good way to go. And you won't see me only from now on ever recommending only these cams I have for sale. That's silly. I've tested so much other stuff. What I'm telling you is that those cams work, and so do lots of other cams from other cam manufacturers. The Truck Norris cam from Brian Tooley Racing, the Red Hot, the Hot Rod, all the truck, all of that stuff. All of those can work. Same thing with Cam Motion and Texas Speed and the ISKI guys and the GPI guys. Everybody makes good cams. Everybody makes cams that will work for your combination. And for the guy out there thinking about getting a camshaft for his turbo combination or even his NA combination, that's good news because you have lots of stuff to choose from. Everybody thinks that, oh, if I get this cam, am I going to miss out on having some other guy's cam? No, just get your cam and put it in and go drive it around and get it tuned and have fun with it. And stop worrying that this other cam might have made 1 more horsepower or 2 more horsepower, because the only guy that sees that is me. I'm the only guy that runs these silly tests where we found out that one was 1 or 2 better than another one. But that doesn't matter. What matters is you got a cam, you hopefully got a good deal on it. You got it from people that treat you right and took care of you, took care of your buying needs. You got it in your car, you got it running, and now it's working, and now go enjoy it. Don't think about the fact that, because if you put a camshaft in, you have the version 1 or version 2 camshaft, and later on they come out with the version 2.5. Don't think that you missed out on something. Technology continues to grow. And also, if you look at the camshaft that you have, that you bought, that works in your combination, is out driving around, there are thousands of other cams that could have made a little bit more power. But would they have traded something? And so stop thinking about you're missing out. Put your camshaft in, go enjoy life, and go have fun. Okay, that's my turbo camshaft spiel. Now we get to the fun part where you guys ask questions, and hopefully I can answer them. Okay, do you have a turbo cam in your motor? The answer is yes. So let's see what you guys got going on. Do you have drop-in, no springs required? I don't have any NSR cams. Brian Tooley Racing has good NSR Truck Norris cams, which are we have tests on those, and they work very well. And they were only compared to the higher lift stuff, because that's really what an NSR cam is. It's a lower lift version. Although that particular change that he made, the load profile is different on the NSR cam than it is on the regular Truck Norris cam. But it allows you to run it with the stock, even the stock truck springs, which are like 500 lift springs. So you can do that. You can run the like the low butt truck that I have, or the Truck Norris cam, or the Chopacabra, and all of those. Anything that's like a 550 lift cam, you can run with factory springs. They just have to be factory LS3 springs or LS6 springs. And any of the factory 550 lift springs will work. And then for the 550 lift stuff, also Brian Tooley has you should just buy those $79 springs. I mean, that's dirt cheap for the 550 lift stuff. Turbo Century, you weren't here for the first one. Oh, that's a mark on your permanent record that's going to follow you for the rest of your life. Yep, we got like 5-minute intermissions. Maybe later on will be 10 minutes, but that's the kind of thing we're going to do here. Good morning. Custom cams is opening intake valve when piston is down compared to early when piston is still at the top. I don't understand what your question is. Maybe it's off topic, but where can I find the Super Richie cam I've seen? What do you mean? Do you want to know what the specs are? Because I have all the specs. That cam is a 585 lift, 219, 225, and a 111. Imagine getting one when they're 169. Yeah, saving that $10. High altitude cams work great at low altitude. Yeah, because cams work. Tim, what's going on? Marshall, I haven't been on in a while. Have you gotten the PayPal issue straightened out? Yes, that's been taken care of. I want a cam that would let me rev to 7,500 in my Sentra, but I don't want to pay 2,000. The stock cams in your Sentra, you can rev to 7,500. What you need to do to get it to make power up there is shorten your intake runner length a lot, and then have a rising boost curve, and your cams will go to 7,500. Turbo cam equals a torque cam. A turbo cam equals any kind of cam. It could be a high RPM horsepower cam if that's where you want to make power with your turbo. It can be a low RPM stock cam. It could be a mid-range cam. It could be anything. It just whatever you want to get done with your cam, just do that and then add boost to it. Richard, I want an extra double trick turbo cam. Yes, we have those. The double trick is the stage 2, right? Bring back $130 small block Ford roller cams. Yeah, good luck with that. Welcome back. Are we all going to sing the Welcome Back Cotter song now? What cam for a Ford small block 5-liter roller in a truck? Probably the stock one, although I would like to see the factory hydraulic roller Ford truck cam versus the factory 5-liter cam, like it from 2,000 to 5,000. I'd kind of like to see what those two do. The buffering is insane. You're having a buffering issue. Try logging out and coming back in. So would more duration or more lift be better? Seems like changing separation would help. I'm about to build a 1776cc VW bug engine with a T3 turbo blow through. I don't know what you're asking there. The valve events, when the valves are opening and closing, are going to dictate where the cam is going to be effective at, because the camshaft essentially is it's effective at a given RPM range based on its not so much lift, but definitely its valve event. So duration and lobe separation angle are an indication of those things. So you pick the camshaft like you pick your intake manifold for an effective RPM range. And that's whether it's a turbo or not. Then you would start thinking, okay, well, I want this thing to run to 8,000. Okay, it's not going to be very good then at 2,000. And that's going to be the trade-off. Stock cam 4.8, VS Racing 78.75. Are you saying that you want to run the stock cam in it, or are you saying that you want to run a different camshaft in that? Richard, you should have a shirt of a guy walking down the street holding hands with a cam, looking back at a cam in in a red dress. Exactly. That's like all matrixy and memey. Yep, they are all turbo cams, and yet we only have 54% saying yes that they have turbo cams. If you have a cam in your motor, it is definitely a turbo cam. Added the hashtag turbo cam to list of the mods for my LR4 4.8 liter. Richard, I'm looking at buying another Corvette. Nice. Would you suggest an LS1, LS6, or LS2 will be used as a daily driver? How eventually I'll be doing performance upgrades? If I had the choice of those three things, I would pick the LS2 because the LS2 is going to be bigger. It's going to have more average power production than either one of the other ones. Obviously, way more than an LS1. The LS6 makes a similar peak power, but does so at a higher engine speed. But the 6-liter LS2 makes more average power than the 5.7 LS6 does. All cams are turbo cams, so the survey should be 100%. That's right. Summit Stage 1 turbo cam and my natural aspirated 408 LQ4. Yep. That you're just picking a cam that does the things where you want it to do those things. $10 saved on 2 cams is 2 cans of beer at the local 3rd mile racetrack. Nice. We all put that into perspective, right? I have a 72 Mustang, big body convertible. Back in the 70s, had a real Boss 302 dropped into it. Verified the block and heads. Seems to have a mild cam from what I've read. The factory Boss cam is like a 220 at 50 camshaft, so it's pretty small. I saw these motors were all about high revs and not a lot of low-end torque. Is there a way to get more low-end grunt without making major changes? Details below so you can see them. If you take a look at the Boss 302, I think you might actually be surprised that those things are not about high RPM power. Not stock ones are not. They have very mild camshafts in them, and they have dual plane intake manifolds on them. They just have really big cylinder heads that flow a lot. But if you look at a comparison between that and a DZ302, the Boss makes equal low speed power. And it does that. It has way better cylinder heads than a Chevy does. But the Chevy has more compression, and it has a way bigger camshaft, which is why it doesn't make great low speed power. But the Boss is actually not terrible down low. That's a common misconception. Getaway, what's going on? Bo, I have an intake question. Yeah, just ask, man. I can do that. Do I need if the runners are the factory runners from your Sentra, they need to be shorter. If they're already shorter, I don't know what they were originally, but 7,500 RPM, 6 inches should get you there. If every cam is a turbo cam, the pole should be 100%, right? I know. That's what I'm saying. It'd be cool to see you make a put together a Franken 4-banger that makes wild power. What are you talking about? Cam basically moves the curve to the left or the right. Yes. Although you can't move it down low very much. You can't shift the peak torque down to 1,000 RPM with a camshaft because the camshaft's just not going to do that. Once you get down low enough, the cam stops having an effect on power production. It becomes all displacement and compression, and then intake runner length. By the way, fellers, the GT30s are $120 right now. Perfect for street small block Chevys. I just ordered 4 of them. So turbos on sale now. I say we petition comp cams to change the name of the 284 XR cam to 284 RH. Is that the big block cam? John, what's up? My stock intake runner length is 6 inches upper and lower intake. Cams are tiny. There's an intake I might be able to retrofit extra 6 inches in your experience. Where will RPM be at that horsepower level? I don't. I'm having trouble following what you're saying here. What is the total runner length, and what is the motor and all that? Richard, I have a 5.3 LS with a Howard's Rattler cam. Can you do a test of how much horsepower it makes? I don't have any of those cams. I never tested it. But if you can tell me what the duration at 50 is on that camshaft, I can give you a pretty good idea. How much horsepower is a fast intake worth on an LS2 with a sloppy stage 2 cam over Trailblazer SS? I don't know, 15 or 18, probably better than that on that combination. Richard, how do we get one of your cams? You just send me an email. I'll put my email address in here. Killer B16 at AOL. High revving motors over 8,000 or 9,000 seem to be very complicated. Yeah, RPM and costs go up with each other, and cost goes up exponentially with RPM, it seems like. Michael, you voted no. Now you have to go sit in the penalty box. That's right. That's good, though. That's a good guy that like recognizes and gives himself a timeout. I like that. Points for that. Different subject. Have you ever used your dishwasher to defrost a roast in a hurry because you forgot to set it out last night? No, but let me know if that's happening. Is that like a real thing? Is it covered in plastic or something? 15-inch stock runners to 6 inches now. Stock power drops off at 6,200. If you go from a 15-inch runner to a 6-inch runner, that should make a big change in RPM. What is your boost curve doing? I have a 5.3. Yeah, the Howard Rattler cam thing has already been asked. Sorry, I can't get enough data with the bow. Turbos equals multipliers. That's right. The turbo just multiplies what's there. So if you have a turbo, or if you have a camshaft that's really soft down low, it's going to be soft down low with the turbo. If it's soft down low NA and makes power up top, it's going to do that once you add boost. Pushrod 5-liter automatic trans no stall in a truck is an E303 a good choice? Yeah, that's definitely going to add power. An E303, I think that's 220 at 50, right? It's a single pattern, so it's not terrible. It'll be a little softer down low than a stock one will, especially if you're comparing it to the truck cam, if that's what you have. But on the 5-liter cam, it'll be a little bit softer down low than that. Duration at 50 is 226, 234 for the Howard Rattler cam. So a 226 cam is probably going to be in the low to mid 400s, the way that we tested at the flywheel. 2.8 4-valve turbo makes 280 horsepower at 5,600 RPM. It's 7,000 total length of 6-inch stock. I could have 5 to 6 inches with a different plenum. Stock turbo runs off of the map. Yeah, if you add 6 inches of runner length, you're going to change where the thing makes peak power. Although 5,600 seems pretty low. Do you have a falling boost curve on that? 6 inches is probably going to change at 500 or 600 RPM. But but should add a bunch of torque, though. Taylor, what's going on? I'll know later. No soap. Soap's not an option. I decoded the 460. It's an early motor with 10.5 to 1 compression, stock 365, 500 foot-pounds. That's cool. So it's like a 69, 70 kind of thing, or 68. Pretty happy about that. Got a stealth intake and a 750 carb. Going to run it like that for a while. That'll be good. Those things make good torque. Is runner length solely dependent on the runner, or can plenum volume behind the throttle body be increased to compensate? No, the plenum volume is not going to affect runner length at all. Plenum volume will change things independently of runner length from the Helmholtz resonance. The runner length of the inlet tube in front of the throttle body can affect, it doesn't affect runner length, it affects Helmholtz resonance, but can affect it. But the runner length is going to be the runner length. The runner length is just up to the common plenum, because the reflected wave goes up and expands out and then contracts back, essentially. And it does that as a negative and a positive. Since 6 inches total doesn't have any intake resonance tuning, bringing it to a total of 9.5 might bring it into the rev range. That just run the turbo harder off of the map. No, it's not going to. Think about what it's doing NA. So if 6 inches is going to be effective in that RPM range, even at 5600s. 6 inches will do something, because what happens is if you look at the power curve with a runner length, even a shorter runner length will have these waves in it. So one of those waves, maybe not the primary, but certainly a secondary or tertiary wave, is going to have some sort of gain in there somewhere. 9.5 will be a different wave. And then 15 and however else far you want to go to, you're going to be adding power in some kind of range NA, and then you're going to be multiplying that with boost. I don't know what the map looks like, and I don't know where you are on the map relative to that change. I'd have to look at that on the map and see what's going on. But just do it. Do it and run boost, and good things will happen. My boost hits 13 PSI at 5,000 and climbs to 14 at 7,000. So you might want to make more of a rising curve if you can, to have more effective power. You would have a rising boost curve of more than 1 PSI going from 5,000 to 7,000, and then your power curve will continue to climb at RPM. What's a good budget intake for a 4.8 LR4 ProCharger D1SC? The factory intake, the truck intake that you have on a 4.8 would be my choice, unless you're wanting to run lots of RPM. Bo, but you're at 32 pounds a minute. You're looking at the maximum flow rate of the turbo, but you're only getting that at maximum engine speed. You're not getting 32 pounds a minute at 3,500 RPM, which is where or 4,000 RPM, which is where you'll be changing it. I built a transmission rebuild bench. Now I have to make a shelf to put all the stuff where the bench goes. That's it. It's all a rearrangement. I'm not saying we had anything to do with it, but I'm glad the PayPal was fixed. Yeah, it wasn't from something that anybody said or did. We were actually able to figure it out because I had a guy that decided that he cared about it, and it was actually fairly simple once we did it. It wasn't anything that they were doing. They weren't holding it on purpose. TD04 is just an exhaust side at a 20G compressor wheel on a TD04 15T from a Saab, made 340 wheel horsepower, 380 foot-pounds. A T5 B23 4R 9000 Aero Saab motor. Nice. Eddie, I put my email address in here for the cams, if you take a look at the email address that's on the yeah, it's in the comments. Just send me an email. Do you think the aftermarket will pick up on the 4200? I didn't see anybody ever making heads for that, but some guys are doing. I've seen some billet intake manifolds on it, and certainly cams. There are already reground cams for those. I don't know if people will be doing dedicated cams for that or not. John, what motor is yours? Oh, the 460. You could put, I don't know what RPM range you want to run on the 460, and I don't know what your available piston to valve clearance is on that combination. But going from a stock cam that's in there to like a 224, 232 kind of thing is going to be a good performance street cam. You could even go bigger than that. You could do like a 232 or a 236 if it will fit. I just don't know what available piston to valve is on that. A friend used a turbo on a DOD motor. When it went into 4 cylinders, the blow-off valve would pop. Do you know why? He should never be in DOD mode under boost at wide open throttle. So I don't know why he would be in 4-cylinder mode at that throttle angle. What's a good budget cam for 5.3 LS? You said with the Howard's Rattler cam should be making low to mid 400s. What's a budget cam that would give me more? There isn't a budget cam that will give you more than what you have. If you're going to go up in cam size from a 226 at 50 camshaft, you're going to start trading low speed power unless you want to do that. If you want to make more power than that, you're going to put a bigger camshaft in it. You're going to put something that's going to be in the 230s. But none of them are going to be budget. Maybe a sloppy stage 3 would make, it's going to make more than that. So maybe one of those. Turbo sensor, what about cam timing? Yeah, you might be able to retard that cam timing a bit and see what happens. A 190 cam's pretty small, but not based on probably the individual cylinder bore and stroke, though. I mean, it's not ideal. It'd be better if it was like a Type R cam, like 220. But you can get away with a lot with short runner and a rising boost curve and make the thing 1 RPM. So to give you an idea, my buddy Jimmy, his 3.5 J series has the stock cams in it, and he's running it to 8,000. It's funny how you can have hundreds of employees and usually you have one guy that gets it. What is it? Never the boss. When that guy leaves, it takes years to replace the guy and nobody realizes how important he was. Well, what does he get? Did I miss something that happened back here? Those B23 4R engines are beasts. I answered no to the turbo question, but now since I watch every cam is a turbo cam, I'm guessing yes. What supercharger type do you prefer? There's not one that I prefer. I test stuff. So I show people what a twin screw does, what a centrifugal does, what a roots blower does. An axial flow supercharger test would be cool, though I've never done that. I have seen the Latham stuff. way back in the day, but I don't ever remember running one. So I don't prefer one thing over the other. I just show people what they do. Richard, do you have a big block Ford cam for sale? I do. I have some, but they're big roller cams, I think. I own 7 of them, lots of 900 turbos, SPGs, a 9.5 Aero. Did you know that James Bond in the books that I read, actually had a Saab turbo? With the 96 6-liter, an L96, how much reliable horsepower can you make with a GT45 turbo where you're not breaking things frequently? P.S. The motor will be going in a square body. Well, the GT45 turbo is only going to be good for 700 to 750 horsepower with a 6-liter. So I don't recommend running it there, only because the back pressure is going to be fairly high. If you want to make more than that, then I would go to a bigger turbo. When I had my Geo, I thought about putting a turbo Ecotec or EcoBoost engine for the ultimate horsepower and mile per gallon. I honestly don't know if those would get better fuel mileage than just turboing the motor that's in there. But they would make a lot more power, though. But I think you sacrifice one for the other. I think if you turbo the 1-liter, that like I could get over 50 miles per gallon on the freeway with my Sprint, because we did a few things to make it do that. And you have to be cruising and trying to get fuel mileage and not going into boost, hopefully, but we had to on some of these trips because we have to go over hills. But under cruise, you're trying to get good fuel mileage. I don't think that cruising an Ecotec or an EcoBoost is going to be anywhere near that, because I just think that they require more fuel to run. But they can make a lot more power than a turbo 1-liter Geo motor is going to make that's getting good fuel mileage. So would you recommend I stay with a Rattler? If you want to make more power, there are cams that will do that. But your cam is already pretty good size for a 5.3. Let's talk about your experience with PayPal. Oh, okay. I get you. Will a 94 F-150 with a 4-inch lift kit fit 38-inch tires? Yes, it will. They'd be self-clearancing, right? There's a guy in Finland that swapped a BMW E39 rear subframe and turned the engine around in his C900 with a big turbo. Always wanted to do a rear-wheel drive conversion. The Saab engineering team is what built the Cobalt SS. Also, you can thank Saab for the V6T engine Cadillac uses. They use a Saab design 4-cylinder turbo in the lower models as well. Did you see that Cletus is giving away turbos all month? I didn't see that. Richard, do you think my setup can light the tires up on a 323 rear gear 5.3 with a Rattler cam? If I can get it up. I think you're going to have a hard time doing that with that gear, depending on the tire size and your converter size. Is that a stick car or is that an automatic? If it's an automatic, it's going to be hard with that gear set with a stock converter with that camshaft, because it's not going to make very much low speed power. Just looking to make 550 to 600 horsepower. Yeah, the GT45 will definitely do that on a 6-liter. So, funny bike, you've always used a cam that's a little bigger than you needed. That's good. You should definitely do that with turbos too. I'm pretty confident 1970s didn't have a roller cam. Yeah, these are solid roller. I think that the ones I have are solid rollers. I'll check, but I thought that they were. Stock 302 Windsor, swap to AFR Renegades, more torque and horsepower along the whole RPM or just at the top end. If you have a stock cammed 302 and you put Airflow Research Renegades on it, the gains that you would get, I don't remember what the combustion chamber size is. Are you lowering the compression when you're doing that? I don't think you're going to get big gains down low. I think it would be more top end stuff if you get them, because you don't really have a camshaft to benefit it. Twin engine, the Panda Express. Yeah, not so much that. An automatic 700 R4 with a 2500 to 2800 stall. That might be enough stall to get done what you're doing. But I mean, do you have the combination together already? You should be telling us whether or not it'll spin the tires. Do you have a cam for a 4.3 turbo application? Like a 4.3 V6 turbo? I think you get better mile per gallon because the motor will be under stress like the Corvette. No, that's a common myth that bigger engines will get better fuel mileage. They don't do that. They're not less stressed. It takes a given amount of power to have the car drive down the road at whatever weight and aero load and frictional loss that the car has. So it takes a certain amount of power to make the car go against those loads. So now it becomes a function of how do I most efficiently make that amount of power that's required to drive at that speed against those loads, the aero load and the frictional loss and all that. How do I get the motor to do that with the least amount of fuel? And that's never a big motor. That's always a small motor. I'm going to try a front wheel drive standing burnout at the burnout contest. That's good. Just lock the rear tires, right? I have it together, but I have a Holley single plane intake and a Holley Sniper, and I'm fighting a bad stumble right now. Yeah, you're going to have trouble getting it to do a burnout with a single plane intake manifold. That's going to be a big problem. That camshaft and a single plane intake manifold is going to be really, really soft down low. Hopefully you don't pull a Mustang. That's like a real thing, right? That is a real thing. Okay, you guys get in the comments. Please help me answer this question. So this is a comment I got, this question I got. So this gentleman has an 86 Fox Mustang. He does a bunch of suspension stuff that he works on for a living, I guess. So he wants a motor that will fit under the stock hood. I've considered many, many options. For the most part, it comes down to a 347 based on an 8.2 deck block. He's going to use an A4 or a Boss block. So he wants north of 400 to 500 rear wheel horsepower. Okay, so you guys got that? So you guys are going to answer this in the comments. And he wants 400 to 500 foot-pounds of torque. So right away, the thing that my little warning light begins to blink, and my little Ultraman warning light, 400 to 500 horsepower and 400 to 500 foot-pounds, those are big spreads. First of all, 100 foot-pound spread and 100 horsepower, rear wheel horsepower spread is really big. Not a big problem, except I want to keep the stock idle characteristics. So that's his caveat. Probably not possible. I've not taken boost off the table. Every builder I've talked to is trying to sell me something, so I have to take everything with a grain of salt. He's been doing research on cam profile design, but it's not my expertise. The question is, can I make this kind of power with a 347 with boost? Wants to do it with a supercharger and not a turbo, with a stock or relatively stock cam. The fuel delivery will be port EFI. I'm leaning towards Holley, but he's not committed to that. I'm thinking if I do a short block built that's stout enough, that's pretty easy. I can just keep turning up the boost within reason until I reach the power level I want. I can use bigger heads, bigger exhaust, bigger whatever, as long as it doesn't sound like a GT40 from Le Mans. It's not going to sound like that. at a stoplight. So please let me know. Don't sugarcoat it. I read he wants our opinion on what he can do. So can this guy with a three? So here's the question. I'll rephrase it. So he has a 340. He's wanting to do a 347. He wants to do it with a mild cam. Can he make? Let's take the north side of his stuff. Can he make 500 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds with a blower and not a turbo? So given the fact that Roots blowers are going to be hard to find for that combination unless he does a 671, but he wants something that fits under the hood. So that's almost definitely a centrifugal supercharged 347. That's what I'm thinking. So can he make 500 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds with a centrifugal blower with, let's say, a stock cam or a stock-ish cam? So let me know. We only have a few minutes left. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? How would you answer that question? Do you think that this guy can do this? Drop a Coyote with stock manifolds and maybe no, the NSX is because he wants a stock style camshaft. I saw a video of a guy who swapped an LS3 525 crate motor into a Fox body Mustang. Did you see the lean mode they used in Australia on the LS engines? HP Tuners has an on-off for this on some engines. Lean burn mode or something. C6 Corvettes pulling 30 miles a gallon. So, yes, with a YSI supercharger, stock 300 horsepower, 15 pounds of boost. So that's good, right? Doesn't Edelbrock make a blower for a 302? Do they make a 2650 for the 302? And will it fit under the hood or something smaller? Maybe a 2.3 liter. JIVAN13. A dual plane would make a lot more low speed power, and it would be and it would make a lot more low speed torque, and it would be easier if you're trying to spin the tires. A dual plane would be a better way to go. All right, Dan, we'll see you. So what do you guys think? Can this guy do this? The E-Force, yeah, I've seen the E-Force line, but I didn't know if they had one for a 302. So here's my answer. So before we have to go and come back again for another hour, we'll be doing this a lot. The answer is yes. 500 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds with a supercharger is not going to be a problem at all. Even if he wanted to do a stock cam, because I've run stock cams and stock heads on 347s, and the stock head is not the way that I would go. I would put a good head on it. I put an Airflow Research like a Enforcer head or even their 185 or head on there, which would be a good combination. And I actually would go bigger than a stock cam. So I would do a 258 or a 264. You'd still have something that's going to be 18 to 20 inches of idle vacuum, but it would make a lot more than a stock cam. So it'd be up 30 or 40 horsepower NA from a stock cam, especially with those heads on it, on a 347. And so he would multiply that out. So with a Vortec, for instance, a ProCharger or a Torque Storm, any of these kind of centrifugal blowers, for the intake manifold, he could even get away with a GT40 or an Explorer if he can find that, a ported one. Maybe these big dog ones that are ported, he could get something like that. Or any of the trick flow manifolds, all of that kind of stuff. They also the trick flow heads, the 11Rs, those kinds of things. Any of those with a mild comp cam, the smaller versions than the 274s that we normally recommend, something smaller than that, that's still going to give them 18 to 20 inches of idle vacuum with a centrifugal blower on it. The answer is yes, you can get that done, and I'll send him an email and let him know. I say LS and supercharger. No, he wants to do it with a Ford. Dylan, what's going on? LS is easier to do it with. Yeah, but he's not doing that. Mini marathon. Yes, it's going to be 12 hours. Blowers rely off of engine RPM to make CFM. You need to do some pulley math, and you could make that happen. The horsepower and torque being the same on a centrifugal blower would not be that hard with the smaller cam. The thing that's going to happen is peak torque and peak horsepower are going to occur near the same RPM. So that would happen. It wouldn't have a bunch of low speed power with a centrifugal blower because it has less boost there, but it would still have fairly good low speed torque with this long runner intake, the mild cam, and a 347. So I think it probably ultimately would still give him what he wants. It would be better if it was a positive displacement blower. I think he would be happier with that. But sometimes we can't make all of the that's what I was talking about. Like when we were picking the best cam, like we were talking about earlier today, you have all of these criteria that you want, and then that eliminates a whole bunch of the options for your camshaft that are available out there. Same thing with his needs for the blower application. I want to fit under the hood. I want a stock camshaft. It's going to narrow what's available to him. And a centrifugal blower with this combination, I think, will definitely do that. You think you should go with the 460 and SR71 heads? Yeah, that would do it. I want a VVT cam in my Tahoe. I want the low end torque and fuel economy. Here's the problem that you have with VVT stuff. Is there lots of other guys make VVT cams for your LS? I don't know what year that is that you're talking about, but they make VVT cams for the Gen 4 and Gen 5 stuff if it's an LS or an LT. Excuse me, they make VVT cams for that. That's not a problem. But as you make the cam more powerful, you have to limit the available sweep. You have to eliminate some of the VVT ability because you don't have the available piston to valve clearance to do that. So you're minimizing its effectiveness at 1 RPM range for the other. And you're also eliminating some of the drivability stuff too that it's doing, because it's swinging VVT way more at part throttle and idle and cruise and stuff than it is at wide open throttle. At wide open throttle, it's moving at 8 or 10 degrees, not very much. But you're going to have to minimize that because you're going to have to not allow it to swing like 20, 30, 40, 50 degrees that it's doing under these part throttle things, because it doesn't have available piston to valve clearance now that you've added more duration with the camshaft. So you're narrowing your focus there on your VVT deal. But they have VVT cams that will still allow some VVT action. I have a question. I'm going twin turbos on my 408. I'm looking to get 1100 horsepower. My compression's 11-1. What are good sized turbos? I was thinking 72s. I don't know what you mean by thoughts. Twin GT45s is probably too much for that, but GT3582s would do that. So we got a couple more minutes, and then we're on a break, and then we're back. Are you selling 4.6 valve cams? There are a couple that I have. Robert, I have the 274 non-PI 274H cams. I think that there's a set of those there. But they're 50% off. So next, I think we're going to talk about, in the next episode, we're talking about tunnel rams. I have a whole list. Here. What turbo can I put on a stock 4.8? A GT45 is the one that I would put on there. Have any Brian Tooley Stage 2 cams for sale? Nope. I had one of those, I think, from way back, but that one's gone. But what are you using that for? What's the application? . So in the break, do you do chores? No, I can't really do chores in 5 minutes. It'd be for an L96 6 liter. The let's see. Are you gonna run a turbo on it? If you're gonna run a turbo on your 6 liter, I would put the Truck Plus cam that I have that's 219, 225. I would put that in it instead of a 226 cam, which is what that stage 2 turbo cam is. Do you think Tech Speed is going to have 4th of July theme for the cams this year? Is anybody in an area? And then I've got to get going. One question is, and you guys can come back and answer in the next video because we're doing a 12-hour marathon. So stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Come on. Wake up. Is anybody in an area where they get to see these northern light phenomenons from our solar flare? Let me know. We're not, I mean, at least I haven't seen them that I can remember. I haven't seen them, but has anybody seen any of that stuff? Let me know, and then I'll be back in roughly 5 minutes.